Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Mecah Angelika Nuez, AB Literature 1A, and I am the reporter for the topic, the material self. Before we discuss what exactly is a material self, first we will define what a material self is. In the words of William James, the Harvard psychologist and giant of the American intellectual scene in the late 19th century, a man's self is the sum total of all that he can call his. James wrote in 1890. This included his body, his family, his reputation, and also his clothes, his house, his lands, his horses, his yachts, and bank accounts. In other words, the material self is all the possession, the material possession that we have, that a human has. If they grew, their owners felt triumphant, and if they faded, their owners felt the part of themselves was dying. All the physical elements that reflect who a person is, may be possessions, cars, home, body, clothes, are part of the material self. The material self craves for clothes, not only to cover the essential parts of the body, but also to decorate itself. Nagsusulot ket hats, necklaces, earrings, rings, bracelet, anklets, yan nga ni nauso kanya na nga, belly necklaces or belly waist, sa ay bubutang sa waist nga mali mga necklaces. The material, so parang di rin siya needed to function, pero ginsusulot ta siya. Moreover, the material self is constituted by our bodies, clothes, immediate family, and home. It is to these things, according to James, that we are most deeply affected because of our investments of self within these things. The more we invest of ourselves in these objects, the more attached we are inevitably to them. So, na-experience na ito niyo nga pag nabuwaraan kam cellphone, grabe di ba yokol ba? Hala, hanak cellphone, na-experience ka itong perme, pag nabuwarak cellphone, mali-mali ito, maputok na kasing-kasing sa kulba. So, that is how James defines what the material self is. For the material self, objects help to make the person, but they also show what that person is made of. You know, di ba pag mayaman, mapapansin nyo talaga ang mga magyaman, like mga Nuez rich, mga new rich nga generation, luxury bags, luxury clothes, pinakamahal nga sarakyan, pinakamahal nga balay, apartment. Ang way of living is, angat, maimod mo sa tao kay kung humble na siya, humble personage. Maimod mo like prosat nga mga pupri, sudlakit sini, simply, diri maate. Although, we cannot just generalize or stereotype, kaya diri man sustuntanan nga tao. Pero mostly, sudsito na nainabo. It means the use and display of wealth remains powerful and controversial, and nowhere more so than for the super rich. Si Kuan, naghimo sa Facebook, si Mark Zuckerberg, naiimod nga ni nato siya, di ba? Wow, parang kaangat ni Ra, si Bill Gates. Although, napapansin ko sa magyaman good, akan na pamado is diri abat nga mayaman. Like, mali simple la, pero ang prices ngayon sito nga kanrabado. Lamang-lamang pa sa tanan nga luxury goods nga naiimod tayo usually. Private wealth has continued to find different outfits, changing with generations and shaped by national cultures and value systems. Luxury goods are also about belongings, especially to the many millions in Asia, for whom branded handbags and accessories are physical signs that one belongs to a global class of stylish consumers. Since K-pop fan man so napapansin ko yun talaga, di ba? And follow nga idol, si Lisa, although diri ko siya idol, ko siya beloved. And follow ko siya, siya brand ambassador siya sa Celine, sa Bulgari, sa MAC, and all our luxury items. So parang naiimod ko siya nga, and South Korea, China, Taiwan, Japan, ang mga wealthy good diri sa Asia is dako ang importansya nga ginahatag nila sa mga luxury items. Tapos, napapansin ko lahat, ang mga nuevo rich or ang mga new rich is, akan na pagpaimod sa kanra wealth is, sa kanra experiences, travel, akan na food, kakatuan. Pero ang mga old rich, itong mga generation na talaga, akan na parang pagpaimod nga mayaman sila is, akan na investments, like, an Rolex. And kung consider ito nila nga, kung an investment, kay an price sa Rolex is tigataas la. An Birkins and Birkin bags. Mga collectible, mga rare collectible items siya yan na. Psychologists who study the impact of wealth and inequality in human behavior have found that money can powerfully influence our thoughts and actions in ways that we're often not aware of, no matter what our economic circumstances are. Pero bigo ni istorya sa mga sangkay nga, ang papa nga ni, naglalakaw nga ni nga, waray ka, tapos sugid na, ubus na, paglakaw, ubus na sa imod. Pero pag may korte ka nga, papa, mapapansin mo ito, sinisang palingig niya sa taliligid kay, mapon itong siya, pero itong siya nag-imod kay kanyan siya pwede uli saang, may siya igbalyo saang, or maimod siya nga, magiging karuyag namon. So, that just is an example of what this text is saying. Curtis 2017 manifested that cash can have serious bearings on one's belief regarding the way a person views herself. The following evidences behind the idea that money can change people. A. Social and business value. Heyman and Irely, 2004, surmised that there are two motivations for completing a given task. The first is social. By recognizing a task's social value, a person sees it as worthy investment of time and part of his or her social duty. And she is usually happy to help out. When money is offered as the motivation, however, people start thinking less of the social aspect and more about the business value. So, another example of this is, sa eskwelahan, kay may mga sangkay man, di ba pag nag-uuya, tara, kantin kit. Danay naupod ak, pero pag inuhubya, akdak talaga sa naupod. Except, kung nasugod ako, sangkay nga nag-uya, tara, katagad sa kantin, libre ta ikaw. So that is one example of these following aspects. The next is self-sufficiency and service. Those who are conscious of money typically strive to be more self-sufficient than those for whom money isn't a priority. Ito na nga ni, di ba, nagkayaon, what do you call it? Conflict pag-abot sa online class. Kay, damo ang nagsusugad nga, okay man lang ko an online class. Pero damo lang ang nagsusugad nga, diri ko nira kaya ang online class. So, that is an example of this. Ang mga conscious talaga sa kwarta. So, dirak mahilig magkaon sa gawas. Kaya kung makaon man ako ng gugutom, mauli na lang sa balay ng mabalyo ako sura kay para makatipid ak. Pero napapansin ko, may mga kwarta nga sangkay ko, gugutom nga ni sira, mauwi itong tara, Jollibee kit, tara, milk ticket. Ito parang nagiging culture siya sa mga may kwarta. Ang mga man kwarta, balay. Anyways, when given a very difficult and even impossible task, with instructions that help was available, it was the money-related group that seemed the most intent in getting the job done alone, even when it is not possible to finish the task solo. It only means that money-conscious individuals are more self-sufficient than their peers, particularly when money is made the focus. Self-view. The amount one earns could have an effect on how she, both himself and herself and others, see the person. So, ito na nga, di ba nga, pag may kwarta ka, confident ka. Pero pag wala ka kwarta, ang napapansin nito nga, ang stereotype nga, papaimod sa mga movies. Ito yung mga cliche ng mga movies nga, di ba? Ito nga, probinsyana, bago nga, like, tikang sa probinsya, maiskwela sa dako nga eskwelahan, mapapansin nga kanya behavior, anxious, hadok nga magkayaon mistakes, or hadok ba siya nga magsala siya siton nga ang like situation, pero napapansin mo ang mga usually mga popular or mga parang bida, mga kontrabida siton nga mga movies is mga magyaman. So parang naiimod mo pero nga confident, maarte, may pagka-arrogant or like bully. Kaya sila power, like akan na money, nagiging power nila. The wealthiest people are those with deeper sense of class essentialism. The idea that differences between classes are based upon identity and genetics rather than circumstance. And usually talaga napapansin ko, ang may mga arrogant good nga behaviors, ang mga new rich. Ito, nagyaman la. Kaya mga daan na lugod nga magyaman, itong mga billionaires na mo lugod na nagkukuan sa charity, mo nag-help, or to parang maubasira, diri matapobre. Pero mga bago nga, mga nagyayaman pala, mo lugod na matapobre. Poor people tend to believe that social class was not related to genes, that essentially anyone can be poor. I just told the joke sa di kay auntie bago ko, di ba ka maaram nga ang pagka-poor pinakamahal? Kay biskan na nga kwarta ayaong ka, o biskan pira nga kwarta ayaong ka, biskan ibong patanan na karon sa kalibutan, diri ka magiging pobre. So mahal siya ura-ura. Rich people were more likely to believe that wealth was part of genes and identity, that they are entitled to wealth based upon their personal circumstance and actions. Wealthy people also believe that more or less, life is fair and people mostly get what they deserve. Ethics. Those who perceive themselves to be in a higher class were the most likely to engage in unethical behavior, particularly when a symbol of wealth was introduced, such as cutting off a pedestrian when in a luxury car, for example. Clift in a study labeled this behavior self-interest maximization, an idea that suggests those who have the most money or occupy higher classes are more likely to take what's in it for me attitude. They actively work towards the most benefit for themselves. Last is addiction. Many addictions begin because a person gets a positive from a certain type of behavior, whether it's a happy feeling that one gets from shopping or a thrill that comes from gambling. Actively seeking out that behavior again and again for the same outcome can trigger an addiction. So, aminado man mayon addiction sa Wattpad, and it's not very healthy. Like, yon addiction nga harmless. Pero yon man addiction nga diri talaga pwede nga igpatuloy mo siya. This is called behavioral or process addiction, a compulsive behavior not motivated by dependency on an addictive substance, but rather by a process that leads to a seemingly positive outcome. Ito na nga, di ba nga, nagbuwat ko da kay nahahappy nagiging habit siya. Kaya nga bago, di ba, habits are dangerous. Kaya the more you do something, the more nga mas makuri siya, hindian, or diri siya nahimuon. That high of a big check or well-padded savings account can become the sole purpose of a wealth searcher's life. The positive feeling that allows obtaining money can cause a chemical reaction in the strain on relationships outside of those that relate to earning more. Ito na nga, di ba nga, pagkuhan, naiimod na kami sa movies, nga although medyo exaggerated sa movies, na imod na gayap nga, nag-aaway-away sa lupa, sa wealth, sa inheritance. So, Moiton siya agin i-explain sini nga aspect. Money is an excellent servant but a terrible master. This is the quote that I want to leave to you before I end my report. Money is an excellent servant but a terrible master. It is okay to work for money or to want money, as money is an important thing in our lives. Diri ka man makakakaon kay kun wala ka kwarta. Diri ka man makakabalyo, di ka makakaanano kay kun diri man di ka makakaanano. Pero kuan siya, part siya sa ato life. Pero kunta, diri siya an money, diri siya an mag-control sa it. Diri ma-sacrifice siya ni principles, ni morals, kung saan imo priorities, dapat diri kwarta. So, yun lang. Money is an excellent servant, but a terrible master.